Alrighty guys, welcome back to the channel and more SPQR coverage here. So we're continuing on and taking a look at the changes with the new edition here. So we've covered weapons and armor. We're going to take a look at equipment now for you guys, and just kind of like standard equipment across multiple factions, although some of it's a little bit more faction specific. So Aero Apron, to start off with, has basically moved from armor over into the equipment section, and whereas before basically, it kind of worked against missile fire. Now, the main benefit of it is that it basically just provides light cover as a standard feature, which makes that, I think, overall much better than it was before. Excuse me, moving on, Barting is essentially the same. So basically, here we have a cavalry model with Barting adds extra to its armor, but then -1 on move, okay? So again, keep in mind the rider's armor does not affect the cavalry movement. So that's a great instance where you want to load up on as heavy of armor as you can afford for the rider, just because again, it's not going to affect the mount's speed. Camel, which there aren't too many units that have Camel, but basically, let's see, it's treated exactly the same as horses, but may not double its move as before. And then the unit may force horse-mounted enemy units in close combat. That's in close combat with to reroll all successful melee checks, so that's still the same. And then if the camel unit charges a horse-mounted enemy unit, the enemy unit will make an immediate will to fight check, so same stuff there. The horn is basically the same, so once per battle. If you have a horn in the unit, you can perform 3 actions instead of 2. So again, as good as it always has been. Horses have changed a little bit because they don't provide a static +1 to the armor anymore. So you still get the double its move score for 1 move or melee action in every phase. You get +1 wound like before, but that's pretty much always now actually factored into the profile. I know there was some wonkiness with the first edition where sometimes the stats kind of reflected that and sometimes it didn't, which created some confusion. Also, as before, both short spears and long spears basically provide you with at least lethal 1 when you charge, but if you do have other lethal, that stacks on that. So, for example, when you do finally the normal bonus for charging itself gets applied to that. So really, like lethal 1 becomes lethal 2 very quickly, and so on and so forth. So again, armor worn by the rider does not inflict penalty to its move score. They become changed from infantry to cavalry when they're mounted. And then basically, when a unit consisting solely of cavalry charges, each cavalry model reaching base contact gains an additional melee dice to add to their melee pool. That is significantly different because before, basically a unit of cavalry gained +1 bonus to its melee check, so they would certainly hit more, just not more often. But here now they're kind of actually factoring the horse in, maybe doing some kicks and bites and stuff like that. So very important then to get positioning and get as many units into contact or models into contact as possible to get that extra melee dice with cavalry. So very, very useful there, and that's whether it's horses or camels, that's all good. Again, the big change, the other big change is that again the just being cavalry now does not provide a static extra armor just for being cavalry. You still get the extra wound for being cavalry. That has remained the same, but they just took away the freebie armor just because it was creating too many super tank cavalry units out there that were just too hard to deal with. So basically, things that weren't really cataphracts were essentially becoming cataphracts without really having to pay much points for it, or in some cases not even have like movement penalties imposed on them. The Pila is still quite lengthy here, and they've sort of significantly changed up the wording on that, guys. So we're basically just going to focus on what it is now because there's a lot to it. So we're going to skip the sort of history paragraph at the start there. That I think is basically the same, but here's how the Pila works now. So a unit may use its Pila once per battle and not while already locked in combat. When used, an enemy unit that is performing a melee action to charge the unit using the Pila suffers the following consequences. So the unit using the Pila makes an immediate ranged attack against the acting unit as described on page 10 with an additional -1 modifier to their ranged checks. The acting unit is no longer the acting unit is no longer considered to be charging and receives none of the benefits of charging, such as lethal or wild charge or stuff like that. So super important, because wild charge provides that bucket of dice now. So very important to be able to deny them that if you're Roman. And for this melee action and every subsequent melee action, the acting unit is locked in combat. The acting unit cannot use any shields. The acting enemy unit regains the use of their shields once they're no longer locked in combat. That is somewhat similar to the way it was, where the enemy unit wouldn't get charging bonuses, and they basically couldn't use their shields to parry in the first action of that combat, but now it lasts basically the whole combat while they're locked. So Pila have significantly increased in effectiveness, and the fact that before basically you didn't get that free shooting action out of them, so they kind of work maybe a little bit more like they should. So again, yeah, the unit using the Pila gets that free range attack against the acting unit, but you do have a -1 when you're shooting it. But that's really of small consequence. The fact that the other two abilities here last for the whole combat significantly outweighs the penalty to your one-time shoot action there. Basically, if you can kill a few enemies as they charge in, great, and that's all well and good. Although interestingly, the Pila don't get any kind of special stats. I feel like they should get like lethal 1 or something like that, because basically enemies are kind of like running headfirst into those. But nonetheless, they're still fantastic now. Again, denying the enemy the charge bonuses first and foremost, and essentially just removing charging from their, as far as like they're not charging anymore, they're just essentially getting into combat at that point. But basically denying them their shields for the whole combat while they're locked in combat is huge, because of, again, the way shields work now. Again, parrying is gone, and shields providing those rerolls to failed armor saves and stuff like that is huge now, because the enemy has paid points for all that, and then the fact that they still don't get to use that for the entire combat, not just the first turn now, is huge, which will really help Roman units just more easily weather those kind of charges, and then start to whittle the enemy down. And typically, again, once the enemy gets below large unit status, that's usually, Romans are generally going to be outnumbered. Once you can grind them down to less than large, then generally the superior Roman stats and armor and stuff will tend to keep you in the fight long enough to where you can then just win and eventually break them. So super good stuff on Pila there, guys. Big one to look out for. And then standards basically has changed a little bit. So, any unit, including its own, within 6 of a friendly standard may reroll any failed will to fight check. That has decreased by 6 inches, guys. It used to be a 12-inch buff there, or a bubble. It's only down to 6, which then also really helps to explain why standards are so cheap now. So again, pretty much universally standards were 25 points apiece across all the factions. That has dropped to only 5 points, which is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. That's pennies to pay for standards now. So really very affordable across all factions. You should definitely see more of those being used all over the place. But consequently now, only a 6-inch bubble does drastically alter the range that's going to be effective by, because again, most units are going to be pretty decent size here. In 6 inches is really not that far, so to sort of spread that wealth around, you're going to have to do some creative positioning with where the standard bearer is placed in the unit, and you're going to have to keep other units pretty damn close to him if you want to spread that wealth around. So it'll be even more crucial then to make sure that the standard bearer does not go down, especially once you start losing models and all that, and getting down to the last few models in the unit. So that being said, it's not that big of a deal anymore if you lose one, because you've only paid 5 points versus 25, but nonetheless, dropping the range that much, I feel, is a little bit harsh. That probably could have stayed at 12, or maybe just decrease a little bit to like 8 or 10 or something like that. I feel would have been fair, but 6 just makes it so difficult with the size of some of these units to really get the benefit out of them. So you might just see more of them being taken just to buff the unit that is the unit to buff itself, essentially. as opposed to really spreading that around and giving pretty much every unit in your faction your force rerolls there. So some interesting changes overall, guys. Big ones again are going to be with the horse, the Pila, and the standards there. Horses again, some solid changes there, not that drastic. The Pila is definitely changed quite a bit and is just a straight up sort of upgrade now as far as like usefulness, and really will you're going to have to very carefully think when you charge the Roman units now. So you're probably going to want to multi-charge Roman units to lock them up in combat, and then charge with like your main unit that you really want to do the damage with afterwards. So if they don't use their Pila and then they already get engaged, then they're essentially prevented from doing that. So so definitely something to think about when you're versing Romans, and you want to be careful there when you are Romans, what you want when you want to pull that trigger on the Pila. So if it looks like you're going to be wiped out, then obviously throw it at the first unit that's charging just to get the value out of it. No, there's not going to get any value out of it when it's when your unit's dead or whittled down. So yeah, so definitely something to think about there, guys. Let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on the big changes here. And again, one more mention for Aero Aprons too. Just providing static light cover now is pretty damn cool. So that kind of wraps up the generic equipment section, guys. Again, happy to hear your thoughts. Hit us up with a like and a subscribe as well if you haven't already, guys. We got plenty more SPQR content coming for you guys and helps the channel grow. Also, check out the link in the description there. If you head over to Warlord, pick anything up that helps support us as well via that link. And hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for more. Take care. We'll see you in the next one.